This podcast is supported by listeners like you. We're grateful for your tax-deductible donation at newthoughtphilly.org or the link in the episode description.
A practical prayer is a prayer that works.
These discussions between Reverend Bill Marcioni and Carol Lawrence dive into the details of how it works and how to work it.
Reverend Bill is a New Thought minister and the author of Practical Prayer for Real Results.
Your new life begins with a new thought.
Carol Lawrence is on a spiritual quest, finding the New Thought teaching after decades on the pulpit in 3 different traditional denominations.
I've got some questions.
Together, they're exploring the philosophy and activities that come together from many of the world's religions to create the practical spirituality that is New Thought.
Welcome to the Practical Prayer Podcast. I'm Carol, here with Reverend Dr. Bill Marcioni.
We are looking forward to an entertaining, uplifting, and inspiring conversation today. And we're going to start by talking about spiritual principle, and then we're going to rapidly veer off course or something. That's what I'm counting on.
All right.
This is based on my observation that from listening to you for these many years, that the New Thought philosophy is very straightforward about the creative law that's always responding, that's creating everything, and it has been since the beginning of time. And the approach is that it is a principle. It is a creative scientific principle. It is a law of nature. And that creative process has been going since the infinite said, let there be light. And that law responded and created light, and then let there be, and it continues working. And it's the same law that's described in all the other religions and in the Big Bang. In the beginning, there was the one, and it began exploding, expanding, and evolving into everything that exists. And the part that's important about all of that is that we all have that one in common. And it's not like that creative process is somewhere outside of us and we have to beg it for a favor. It abides within and we can use it. It is a principle that responds to our belief, our conscious intention, and our word, depending on how we're mixing those ones together. As opposed to, as I have been so roundly schooled in the last 4 years, instead of there being an infinite creative power out there in the clouds or in heaven or somewhere in the beyond that is micromanaging us, listening to our requests, and then deciding whether or not we deserve it, and then doling out the goodies according to some plan that is completely unknown to us. So that's what I mean when I say spiritual principle. And it is that difference that makes that brings all of the contrast between traditional religion and this New Thought religion. So that's what I'm talking about when I talk about principle. And now I will stop, and you can give me a yeah, but, and wait a second, or whatever.
I think I'm going to start this by saying I think I'm misunderstood because I totally agree. I do. And I can explain the God of the cosmos out there doing whatever it does. I can explain that because, I was raised on that stuff. I understand it. It was many years ago that I stopped believing it, but I still know how to explain it. But let me say this. If I need to, I don't talk it that way. I use it to contrast what I believe is true. And which, by the way, I'm celebrating that because it is a mark of change that I never want to forget because it helps me to understand people's pain points, which can be devastating. In turn, it's like a disease, a pain point in when you're elevating or transitioning or trying to figure out what it is and you don't know where to go. That is extraordinarily painful and fearful. So it is for that reason alone that I am so grateful for my very long and very much unpleasant experience in traditional religion. but but I do honor it because it has helped me understood immensely where I'm going. But now let me comment on what I thought was very powerful in your conversation as I was waiting for you to click me in. You were talking about principle. And it's interesting that you said that because I was thinking as I was explaining to somebody else, my faith is in the principle, not the rhetoric or even a kind of God idea. But it's in the principle because principle always, it doesn't change. Right? It's the same. So what I'd learned to do early on is figure out what the principle is here. And it doesn't always make a lot of sense. And you say, I got it. I see it. Sometimes it is very contradictory to what you believe. But if it is, principle to me is stronger than truth. And I say, I might have to explain that. Yeah. But truth can be relative. I think it was Khalil Gibran said, say not you have found the truth, say I found a truth. Mm-hmm. So therefore, truth is a little bit kind of wobbly in a way, until you get anchored in the idea. But principle is not like that. It is what it is.
Right.
And I was just having a conversation earlier this morning. I have faith in the principle, even though, and I know we're not going down this road, thank God, but, whatever powers may be, I'm grateful that we're not going down the road of the craziness and the insanity that's happening in the Western world right now. But it is the principle of how spirit operates that I am unable to have fear. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I would extend what you're saying, that there's two different versions of truth. What Khalil Gibran is talking about is our personal truth, our observation of what's going on and our interpretation of the meaning of it. And that is very much an individual little t truth and can be experienced differently by different people. And then there's an infinite truth, the divine truth, which is when you get to talking about principle, and that's a capital T truth because it doesn't change or if you have a different perspective. It's kind of always working the way that it's working. And you reminded me of that little piece in Scripture that says that the rain falls on the just and the unjust. And if you think about that, is the rain good? If somebody wants to water their crops, then the rain is good and it falls on the people who don't particularly deserve goodness, and it's just raining. And by the same token, if it has been raining for 40 days and the ground is wet and sliding away and there's floodwaters and there's more rain, then the rain is punishment. And that falls on the just and the unjust too. So it's not about deservability, it's about principle. And that's the big T capital truth.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I agree with you 1,000%. Probably in our conversations, I don't necessarily lean toward the capital T idea because people are still struggling. It's all, and sometimes it's about the lexicon, which when I first met you, you said the one thing you're going to have to learn is the language of New Thought. Mm-hmm. And I was cool with a lot of it, but there's nuances in the language. And I thought, all right. He says, I got to learn, I said, this is the teacher. What the heck? He says, I got to learn the language. So I went and got, 3 New Thought dictionaries and I just read the dictionaries, right? Not unusual. I read the dictionaries and I got it for the most part. Mm-hmm. But there's some words that can be a little kind of confusing if you are in transition, mm-hmm. which is why I stay away from the capital T. But I do agree with you. It's just that I rarely ever use it because just the two distinctions between the small t and the capital T is just enough for people to say, I don't know what you listen. It's the principle. This right here doesn't change. You can call it whatever you want.
Yep. It's the thing that works.
It's the thing that works.
And if you focus your attention on working it, then it works. And if you don't focus your attention on working it, then it works by not doing anything that you particularly had in mind or wanted.
which
And
means it still works.
it still works. Yeah. And
Yeah.
the little t, capital T truth, some friends and I got into really nitpicking whether we're on capital T's or lowercase t's. And you can write entire sentences with capitalizing the things that are divine in nature and things that are human in nature. And it is completely perplexing unless somebody knows the code. And for that reason, it's not necessary. It's important to not do that, because that's, once again, that's us patting ourselves on the back for how clever we are while keeping everybody else outside.
I don't know. You know what? I think people, and this is probably my thing, people need to be encouraged to think. Because in the Western world, we are not encouraged to think. We're not indoctrinated to think. We're indoctrinated to accept what's been told to you. Back in the day, and of course I'm dating myself, when the news was on 3, 6, and 10, there was, all of those news people, whatever the heck they said, you believed it because that's the truth. They're telling you the truth. You don't have to think. And if it was in the newspaper, the Inquirer, the Bulletin, whatever the papers would be, that is the truth because it's in black and white.
Yep.
But that is, so it's like push the envelope, and you got to come to a place to unbelieve and then believe again. Do you know?
Yeah.
So you got to learn how to think. Where does this fall in what category? I'll tell you this. And this might not be true. This might not.
My favorite sort of thing. The person who says this might not be true.
This might not be the capital T truth. It might not be, but it's the one I'm operating on right now. The one thing that I see out of all of this that we're going through, my eye is zeroing in on human nature. Mm-hmm. Now, that's the psychologist in me. What can I tell you? It's there, right? So I'm thinking, okay, above all else, what is operating here as a principle? And I'm this close to saying that it's human nature. Because I just did this long reading thing on her, Ernest Holmes. So if I seem like I'm on a little bit of a high excitement, this guy just excites me through the moon. Oh, he does. I have fun with Neville, but Ernest Holmes just takes me to the moon. Okay, so he talks about truth and principle and all of that. And I'm thinking, okay, let's see. I see what's going on in the world. What is operating? Yeah, we have free will. And what's the end? What's going to tip the needle, in the direction that we would like to see, so to speak? Well, what's going to do it? It's not going to be an argument, facts, legal principles, none of that. You know what it's going to be? It's going to be human nature, which always acts the same. And if you follow the path, I think you can see it. We can talk about that some other time, but.
I think I agree. Let's take a break, and then we'll come back and talk a little bit about Ernest Holmes and a lot about human nature.
Learn to put practical prayer to work in your life. The steps are simple to learn and let you begin to get real results to create the life of your dreams immediately. Reverend Bill Marchione's widely acclaimed book, Practical Prayer for Real Results, gives you a clear summary of the New Thought principles behind practical prayer and the series of easy-to-understand steps found in the most effective prayers from religions and spiritual practices all over the world and throughout history. Practical prayer is not a replacement for your religion or practice. It's a technique to make the work you do in consciousness even more effective. The book includes 40 prayers on various topics that you can adapt as needed and use as your own. Practical Prayer for Real Results is available in paperback, Kindle, and audiobook on Amazon or at b-the-light.com. That's b-the-light.com. newthoughtphilly.com.
Welcome back to the Practical Prayer Podcast. I'm Carol, here with Reverend Dr. Bill Marcioni.
Wonderful conversation about principle and other stuff. And you mentioned Ernest Holmes. And Ernest Holmes was the founder of religious science. He wrote the Science of Mind textbook. And it's one of the branches that uses the word science relatively liberally. Divine science is the other one. And the reason that we use science is not because scientists have agreed that these ideas have been proven in a scientific manner, applying the scientific method. It is a science because it is based on principle. And Ernest Holmes' big thing was it works the same for everybody. When we clear out the underbrush, when we clear away our disbelief and set an intention, believing that it's going to create something new in our lives, that we're partnering with the infinite and creating that, then it shows up. And it happens. And sometimes it's exactly the way that we thought it was going to be. And sometimes so much stuff changes between the time that we start the process and the time that the good shows up for us that it looks completely different, but that's exactly how we want it to feel. So Ernest Holmes is passionate about that. And also seeing how all of the different pieces fit together. So he was also a student of human nature. And, he's the one who noticed that all of the religions, the really good prayers, the really effective prayers in all the religions followed the same pattern. So he used that to create the pattern, the formula for his prayer, which I have cribbed and turned into the formula for practical prayer, which is 5 or 7 steps of an orderly mental and spiritual process to align ourselves with the infinite and to be aware that we're part of the creative process and to create something new. And human nature, we can look at all this sketchy stuff that's going on, especially now in these challenging times, which we talk about. Oh my goodness, like this is different. And on the one hand, it is different. On the other hand, it's human nature playing out again. I was at a No Kings rally very recently, and I was reminded that as we were standing on Independence Mall, in front of Independence Hall, that it was 250 years ago that they decided that there was not acceptable for a tyrant to be putting the military into their land, our land, and taxing us for stuff that we're trying to buy from overseas, and a list of other things that have come right back around. So what was human nature then is human nature again, and the same sort of thing will unfold again, and we can be all wrapped around the axle about it, or we can be steadfast and know the truth, set our intention for the good and the harmony that we're looking for to unfold, and then when we get our cue, when it's time for us to actually do something, that we notice it and we do it. Pray and move your feet, said the Amish.
That is precisely what you said it word for word, right? I agree with you most of the time. Most of the time. Sometimes there's a little shade or something in there. I'm thinking, but this one, like, I'm with you 1,000%. And it's because of the idea of human nature. And I think, and I've never questioned it ever. But I think my reading on Ernest Holmes recently, and I was doing it for another reason, but something came out of it. And when you talked about human nature acting the way it always does, and here it is playing itself out again, I'm saying, okay, so what in human nature is playing itself out? And you see it. It's the same stuff. It's not like we come up with something new. It's just what piece of it, what part of human nature are we pulling out and playing this card right here? And it's going to come out the same way. It can't help but come out the same way because there's nothing new about the human, right? It's just nothing new. It's just, is this going to play out? Is it going to be quick or is it not going to be quick? And so if I was like having fun with my kids emphasis on the word fun, I'd say, okay, guys, let's put a bet on the table. How long you think it's going to take before the inevitable happens?
Yep.
And it goes from there. And for some reason, when you take all the evidence to court, the fear dissipates.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of dissipates in the presence of truth.
Yeah.
Capital T truth.
Capital T truth. And one of those big capital T truth ideas is that there's only love. And you can think about it as that creative power that starts by sharing itself as its creation, and everything that exists is that one shared, individualized, and taking particular form. We are not just made by it, but we are of it. That sharing of self is love. So everything in the universe is divine love, original source creator love, unfolding. And sometimes it looks like it and it feels like it and it tastes like it, and then it's great. Everybody has a good time. And sometimes it doesn't look like love. And when it doesn't look like love, it's fear. And fear takes a lot of different forms. One of the big ones that's going on now is greed. Mm-hmm. If I take somebody else's stuff, then I'll have more stuff, and that will make my life better. And from one perspective, that's true. And from a bigger perspective, it's not. Because what you do when you take other people's stuff to make yourself richer is you surround yourself with a bunch of pissed off poor people. And that becomes the human nature. Then, of course, you have to police yourself against that. Then you have to build more walls and put up more barbed wire. And eventually, there's a let them eat cake line. And then suddenly the whole thing comes down and you start over again.
And you're so right. And you can look at it in just about every aspect of our existence right now. When the pandemic came, there was a clear don't careness about seniors, mm-hmm. And even a comment was made, just they're going to die anyway. And I heard that and I thought, wow, that's an interesting thought. Okay. So
pretty harsh.
But here's the part. Okay, so that's human nature, right? But I'm thinking human nature has a short fuse for thinking. Because you say, okay, all right, they're getting in the way anyway. If we get rid of them, we'll have more. That's fine. What the heck do you understand you're going to get old?
Right.
Okay, so what happens, right? Did you ever think about that?
Did you miss that?
So who's
part?
going to take? Sure, because who's going to take care of your old tush since you have put in place that there is no value in that? And oh, by the way, time flies. You're going to get old quick because that's just how it works.
Right.
But nobody thinks like the people don't think. Like, what are you thinking?
Yep. Another
I'm wondering.
Pithy quote from Reverend Bill, which is within every young person is either an old person or a tragic story.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't write about that one.
So, the only way that we don't turn old is if something worse happens.
I'm on this roll right now. This was totally unintentional, but I'm on this roll of creating oracle cards. And it's almost like you give me an idea, I got a deck for you. That's just what happens. See, everybody, that's what happens when you believe this stuff about, God's mind is my mind now. You don't do that unless you're serious, because then all these ideas will come. You got to figure out what the heck to do with them.
God will say, I have an idea. Here, you run with it.
It was like, what about the one you gave me this afternoon? Can I finish that one? Would that be cool with you?
Yep. Careful what you pray for, as always.
I would just like to inject this one point, this one thought. Can you see how much fun you can have with spirit? It could just be so much fun. Even if it's only allowing yourself to imagine for the moment. And so I do say that a lot. Pretend, just imagine for the moment. Now, such and such, this is true. It's just it takes you to a whole different place.
I was doing a prayer session last week with somebody who is dealing with with a medical condition, a cyst that's growing in an uncomfortable spot and is being very uncomfortable and limiting activity. And in part of the discussion, we were talking about the growth that's inhibiting motion and activity, and how that was completely counter to this person's life, always wanting to be self-sufficient and always wanting to be free to move around and everything else. I was like, oh, so now you have to rely on other people. So there's two growths going on here. One is the cyst, and the other is the growth that you get to deal with as you deal with the cyst. Okay, how can I accept the support? How can I accept the generosity of my neighbors and the universe? And then, my observation was eventually the physical thing is going to go away and the emotional and spiritual growth will still be there. This stuff always works. This is a principle. Sometimes the universe does it in a way that is humorous. Sometimes, what did Dr. Beckwith say? We're either pulled by passion or pushed by pain. So, okay, find your passion, because otherwise there is a kick coming to the back or the backside, nudging us along.
And there is that, I think maybe at every point or some point in every life, I would say, it shows up a different way. But it's a willingness to see that I'm not looking at the dark side of this. I'm looking at the yes side, the bright side, the side of infinite possibilities, which is a term you introduced me to years ago. If there are infinite possibilities, then I'm jumping in there trying to figure out which one do I want? Which one do I like? Oh, I got this possibility. There might be another one. Let me check this out. So it's how life to me becomes an adventure in truth, an adventure in just the infinite. And there are no limitations there. They just aren't. And you, quite frankly, can't prove to me that there are.
Scientifically or otherwise. Let's take another break, and we're going to do a prayer. And the prayer is going to be about love and fear and pivoting from one to the other. Or from, you'll get it. It's Reverend Bill letting you know that the Practical Prayer for Real Results class is now available on demand. That's right, you can take it at your own pace, anytime you want. All of the information is at BeTheLight.com. That's B-the-light.com. You know where to find that stuff. The class is 5 lessons, broken down into 18 modules, and you can take them at whatever pace is comfortable for you. As you work through the process, it starts out with the theory, goes into the practice, there are experiential activities and exercises, and at the end of the program, you will wind up with an understanding of how practical prayer works, and a practical prayer for yourself that will work to create transformation in your life. And as you know, it works for everything. Take a look at the class online at BeTheLight.com. There's a sample lesson so you can see how the class is going to work for you, and then dive in. The great news is it's on sale now. You can register and save $20 off of the regular price. I'm looking forward to seeing you in class.
Welcome back to the Practical Prayer Podcast. I'm Carol, here with Reverend Dr. Bill Marcioni.
A wonderful, wide-ranging conversation about spiritual principle and the difference between capital and lowercase t truth, and the fact that there's only love, and when it doesn't look like love, it must be fear. And then we get to look at what the fear is from and ponder what it will take to turn away from the fear and turn back to love. So that's the prayer. That is going to be our practical prayer for today, is noticing when there's fear, noticing when all of those things that are going on in our lives, the things that other people are doing to us, or the ways that the circumstances are coming about that makes our life inconvenient, uncomfortable, unmanageable, or unacceptable in some way. And identify that there's a fear. Either that has come upon us, or that it's going to stay, or that it's going to get worse, or that it's going to involve other people, or that we don't deserve to have a better experience than what we've been having up until now. To identify where the fear is and what we want to have instead. Very powerful concept when we're having an experience that we're not liking, to recognize it, to identify and maybe even catalog it a little bit so we can describe it and define it and explain it, and then choose what we want to have instead. Because principle, which we've been talking about, that infinite creative power that has been creating since the beginning of time, is always saying yes. It's always creating something new. And principle, as Dr. Holmes and Thomas Troward pointed out, is not bound by precedent. What happens next is not determined by what happened previously. It's informed by it. What's happened previously has brought us to the current moment, which is our starting point in getting to what's next. But the next step is not determined by the previous experience. It is possible for us to be walking along at an even pace for months or years, or most of a lifetime, and then break into a run. Anything is possible. So the prayer today is about that pivot, about being able to understand, accept, acknowledge, and be present in the current situation while setting an intention and an invitation for some newness and turning away from the darkness, away from the fear, and towards the love and the light. And a prayer goes like this. We start by recognizing that there is one creative power, one divine source, one love, the divine presence that has been sharing itself since the very beginning of time. Regardless of our creation story, there is one, and it has been creating by sharing itself as its creation, either begatting or evolving from the very beginning into everything that exists now. And that everything includes me and each one listening to this prayer. We are part of that one. We are expressions of that one. We are inherently expressions of that divine essence. Not something that we can reach out for, not something that we can hope to connect with. It's the truth. It's the very fiber of our being. We are that divine presence taking individual form. So all of the good that's available anywhere is available everywhere and is available to each of us. And as each one of us comes to an understanding of the experiences and the tendencies and the behaviors that have not been serving us, we are not punished by having to continue living them. We are free to consider what is going to replace this. How am I, as an infinite creative expression of the one, going to turn away from the darkness, from the shadow, from the undesirable, and open something new? That pivot process of being able to turn from that to this, to open to a newness that hasn't happened before, and to join that infinite creative power in knowing that that goodness is coming about, makes us partners in the creative process and opens the channel for the goodness to flow. That's what's happening. It's happening now for each of us in our own way. And I'm so, so grateful for it. I'm grateful for the good. I'm grateful for the love. I'm grateful for the wonderful way it unfolds. I'm grateful for the willingness of each one to engage in this process, to accept the power that we embody, and to let go of the thought that we're being punished for something that we've done before, and to know that something new is at hand. I'm grateful for the stories we get to tell. I'm grateful for the wonderful transformation that's already going on. And I'm grateful to be able to speak this word of opening and release it into that same creative law that has always been creating since the very beginning of time. And it is now creating this. So I let this word be. I let it go. And so it is.
The Practical Prayer Podcast with Reverend Bill Marcioni and Carol Lawrence is a production of BeTheLight.com.
be-the-light.com,
where you can find more information about practical prayer for real results.
Our theme is by Music of Wisdom. You can learn about the spiritual community of New Thought Philadelphia with daily guided meditations,
weekly celebrations of spirit,
and Reverend Bill's classes in practical spirituality
at newthoughtphilly.org.
This podcast is supported by listeners like you. We're grateful for your tax-deductible donation at newthoughtphilly.org or the link in the episode description.